As buyers and consumers, we want to know, how much is it? Give me a sense at least, please. We want to know, what are the problems, the negatives, the issues with it? How could this go wrong? How could this blow up in my face? As buyers, consumers, we want to know, how does this thing compare to this other thing that I'm looking at? We love to compare online, don't we? As buyers, consumers, we want to know, what's everybody saying about it? Good, bad, and ugly reviews. And as buyers, consumers, we want to know, best, most, top. What's so amazing about the Big Five is that your buyers are obsessed with this when they're researching, yet as businesses, we don't talk about these 5 things. How many times over the years has someone had you explain your price versus another price? Hundreds of times. And the problem is, oftentimes we don't address the reason why there's a difference until they ask. And by that point, do you know what's happened? You've lost. I'm gonna show you 7 habits that are gonna drive more trust, they're gonna make you more known, and they're gonna create endless customers if you follow them. You will become your market leader if you do what I'm gonna show you today. Generally speaking, less than 5% of the people that hear me are gonna do the thing that I ask. And that's because that's business, that's life. Now this room might be a little bit higher, but it's probably not much higher. We are top performers, but still you're gonna get too busy, and many of you are gonna say, that was so cool, and you're not gonna do it. But the good thing is we've got 20-some coaches in this room. I know how serious BTA is about these things. And so my hope is that you are one of the few that is willing to apply. Number 1 habit, you gotta be willing to say what others are not willing to say online. Say what others aren't willing to say online. You say, well, what do you mean by that, Marcus? Well, if you've read They Ask You Answer, you know that there's basically 5 subjects that your buyers wanna know, that you wanna know before you reach out to a company. Before you buy that thing, there's 5 things that you always tend to research. What's one thing that you always research? I don't care what it is you're buying, product, service, what's one thing that you always research? Anybody go? Price. You said it really fast. Makes you human. You're normal. So we call these the Big Five. Here they are. This is what runs the economy, folks. And as I say them, you're gonna be like, yep, this is how I basically use the internet. As buyers and consumers, we wanna know, how much is it? Give me a sense at least, please. We wanna know, what are the problems, the negatives, the issues with it? How could this go wrong? How could this blow up in my face? As buyers, consumers, we wanna know, how does this thing compare to this other thing that I'm looking at? We love to compare online, don't we? As buyers, consumers, we wanna know, what's everybody saying about it? Good, bad, and ugly reviews. And as buyers, consumers, we wanna know, best, most, top. How many times have you gone online and you search best plus another phrase? Hundreds of times. And nobody taught you to do that, yet you picked it up over the course of 25 years as you've been attending the school of search. What's so amazing about the Big Five is that your buyers are obsessed with this when they're researching, yet as businesses, we don't talk about these 5 things. Can you ignore the fundamental questions your buyers have and expect to become the most known and trusted brand? Yes or no? You cannot do it. They are diametrically opposed. And so now we're gonna start with the elephant in the room, cost. Let's just go right at it, folks. We're gonna do an exercise now on our own behavior. I want you to really think about this as I say it. I want you to follow along, all right? By a show of hands, how many of you have researched how much something costs online in the last year? By a show of hands, okay? 100%, anybody not? Okay, good, 100%. Now, when you're online and you're researching cost and price and you cannot find it, what is the emotion you experience? Go ahead, what's the emotion? Frustration. Knew you were gonna say that. Everybody said it. That is what we call the F word of the internet. So what gives you the right to feel so frustrated, Bryce? Why do you get so frustrated in that moment? Because you're the what? That's right, you're the buyer. You're the buyer, you're the consumer, and you're trying to get some dang information, and they're making it really hard. So in that moment of frustration, does Bryce here say, oh, I'm sure the information is on this website somewhere, I'll just keep looking on this website until I find it, yes or no? In fact, we know how long the average person searches. Guess how long the average person will search for cost and price on a website until they leave? Guess how long? 10 seconds. Now, in that moment of frustration, does Bryce say, well, of course they're not talking about cost and price. They're a value-based business. I'm gonna call them on the phone instead. Does Bryce do that? No, because Bryce is the buyer. As the searcher, he keeps doing what? Searching, and he searches until what happens? Until he finds what he's looking for. And generally speaking, whoever gives Bryce what he's looking for, they're gonna get what? The first phone call. And I'm sure we could all agree, if you had a choice, you'd always rather be the first company contacted, wouldn't you? The real reason we're getting so upset in this moment as the buyer is because we know that they know a semblance of the answer. They might not know the exact answer, but at least they could give us a sense for it. And because we know they know the answer and they're not giving it to us, we now feel like they're doing what? Hiding something from us. And the moment you feel like anybody's hiding anything from you online, what happens? Trust is gone. With that being said, and I want everyone to participate in this, by a show of hands, how many of you right now talk a lot about the cost and price of all your services on your website right now? Oh, now we're gonna play some ball. And this is the part that I love. I love it because a minute ago you liked me, but as soon as I asked that question, you started to look at me like, I don't know if I like you anymore, pool guy. I love tension. Tension is where we find growth. Are you talking about on your website? No, what's your name? Tom, good. Tom, you look like a good resistor. Now, Tom, there's 3 major reasons why people like you don't talk about cost and price on their website. First major reason is we say, every job is different. Marcus, don't you know we have a very customized solution? Now, Tom, if I came to you and I asked you, can you help me understand the factors that would drive the cost of a project up? Could you explain that, yes or no?
Yes.
If I came to you and I said, Tom, can you help me understand the factors that would drive the cost of a project down? Could you explain that, yes or no?
Yes.
If I came to you, Tom, and I said, you know what, you gave me a price, I really appreciate the quote that you gave me. Also got a couple other quotes. It's interesting, some of you in the industry are high, some of you are low. There seems like there's a pretty big delta. Can you help me understand why there's such a delta in the industry when it comes to pricing? Yes or no?
Probably.
I would hope so. That's your job. That's your job. How many times over the years has someone had you explain your price versus another price? How many times? Hundreds of times. And the problem is, oftentimes we don't address the reason why there's a difference until they ask. And by that point, do you know what's happened? You've lost. You feel me here, Tom? By the way, the whole it depends is the easiest one to explain online. What drives cost up? What drives cost down? Why are some companies expensive? Why are some companies so cheap? Roughly, where do your projects fall? That's it. That's the answer of it depends. You hear me say price, and you're like, I gotta put a number. You don't have to put a number, but you've gotta be willing to address the question better than your competitors do it. That's how you win the game of trust. Now, the second reason why we don't like to talk about cost and price is we say things like, and this is really ridiculous, our competitors will find out. If I asked you all, do you have a pretty decent sense, roughly, as to what your competitors charge? What would you say? Yes. So if you have a good sense as to what they charge, it therefore means they know what you charge. This is the big secret, non-secret. Everybody acts like nobody knows what everybody's charging. In reality, everybody pretty much knows what everybody else is charging. Besides that, when was the last time your competitors paid your bills? Never. We do not base decisions of trust on what the competition is or is not doing. We base it on the customer. Third reason we don't like to talk about cost and price, we say, well, we tend to be more expensive. And if we're more expensive, we might do what, Tom? Yeah, we might scare them away. You know what's so funny, Tom? The thing that actually scares us away as buyers, consumers, isn't when they educate us and teach us about value, but rather it's when we're trying to find the information and we cannot find it. Ignorance is what scares us away, not great education. Do you feel me here, Tom? When we embrace They Ask, You Answer first piece of content we put on our website, how much does a fiberglass pool cost? We said buying a fiberglass pool is a lot like buying a car. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of accessories. We explain what drives the cost up. We explain what drives the cost down. We explain why some companies are expensive. We explain why some companies are cheap. But we said ultimately the answer to your question is, it depends. But because we were willing to explain why it depends, something amazing happened. Because from a search standpoint, if you went online, you search anything to do with how much does fiberglass pool cost, nobody in the industry had talked about it. They were afraid of the same things you're afraid of. So because nobody was talking about it, we openly talked about it. People started calling me saying, finally, somebody was willing to address this question that nobody else was willing to help me with. And then, here's where the rubber meets the road. Here's a list, now stay with me, I promise this will make sense, of the number one phrases that generate the most traffic to our website and the most sales appointments to our website over the next few years. So if you look at this top one here, fiberglass pool prices, okay? We had 13-some thousand people type in fiberglass pool prices into Google. Of those 13,000, 30 of them filled out a form and said, I want to get a quote from you. But here's what's powerful. Every red arrow indicates a phrase that when somebody searched that phrase, they landed on that article on the website, how much does a fiberglass pool cost? So we've got roughly 200-ish sales appointments that occurred from people that have landed on that article on the website, how much does a fiberglass pool cost? So here's the important question. If that article is never written, if we never address the subject, how many of those 200 plus sales appointments would have ever occurred? Zero to almost none, exactly. But in this case, they did occur. And we do know the ones that bought. We know their names, we know the values of their pools. And therefore, I can tell you without equivocation that one single article that took me 45 stinking minutes to write at my kitchen table one night generated over $35 million in new business we would not have had we not been willing to address a simple question. Thank you. And did we ever say how much a fiberglass pool costs? Yes or no? So am I saying to you that you've got to say exactly what your service costs? No. What are we suggesting? What are we suggesting, my man? Give them an idea. Transparency. Teach them how to buy and what to look for. That's what we have to do. And if you don't do it, y'all, who will? Sometimes you complain about commoditization. Do you know what commoditizes an industry? When the buyer is too dumb to know the difference. The only reason the buyer is too dumb to know the difference is because we don't do a good job teaching them the difference. That's your job. Don't leave it in the hands of your competition or somebody else to teach them how much it should cost. $35 million, one single article, that's what's possible for you.